Siri's voice is just a little bit annoying as frick. I realized that after like 2 minutes into editing the last video. So, Nora and I have decided that we are going to voice the narration for all of the chapters that we animate for the Magic School series. And just so chapter 1 can match all of the rest of them, I have to redo the whole thing, which is going to be so fun to edit together. So I'm going to reread the whole thing, and hopefully it'll be more enjoyable to watch. Yeah, okay, here we go. Chapter 1. If you could go to the town of Eagle Rock, which you can't, unless you have some kind of power, you would see a small path alongside a river. If you follow that path, you'll come to a tiny cottage painted pale yellow that has a small thatched roof made of sticks. Now in this charming little cottage, a wizard and a witch, both good and married to each other, lived together. The witch had dark brown hair and green eyes. The wizard had a long, white beard that dropped down to his chest and blue eyes. However, they did not want a magical child. They supposed it would be a nuisance, considering that it was the proper thing to do to send a child with a special power to magic school, found in a pine forest almost 500 miles away. They did not want to do that, and it was only half the problem. They didn't want to take the risk of an immature magical child hurting someone with his or her powers, so they adopted twin girls named Mystica and Enchantia Constel. Both of them were blonde. Enchantia Constel had blue eyes and Mystica Constel had green eyes. But their adopted children turned out to be magical anyway. The parents didn't know they had a gift until they accidentally cast a spell on the lake in the middle of town to make it a water trampoline. When the parents found their children bouncing on the lake, they peppered the girls with questions. How did you do that? Are you okay? What happened? Are you bouncing on water? Wait a second. Are you magical? The girls stood on the water looking frightened. Mystica started to cry a little. Enchantia tried to remember the questions that had been thrown at them.
Well, we're magic, and we were throwing rocks into the lake, and Mystica put a rock in her head and jumped into the lake and bounced up into the sky, and it looked like fun, and I tried it, and...
The girl sat on the water looking troubled. Mystica stopped crying and turned to her sister angrily.
It's not my fault the water looked like fun. You were the one that threw the magical rock into it.
The other girl stuck her tongue out.
I didn't know it was a magical rock. All I knew was that it was gold and silver and sparkly and shaped like a circle and...
Enchantia, Mystica!
Their father's deep voice cut into their argument.
We did not know you were magical. We're sorry if we scared you, but you were not supposed to be magical, no offense. You were adopted by us because we didn't want magical children for fear they would do things like this. You're lucky it wasn't permanent.
The wizard raised his brown staff and pointed the blue glass orb on the end at the lake. He raised his voice and shot a counterspell into the blue-green trampoline. The gel-like water returned to its liquid form. They returned to their cottage on the far side of town. The parents should have learned a lesson from this, but they were stupid. They would not send their girls up for magic school. But after the girls, with their newfound ability, turned their mother's hat into a meatball at age 6 and their father's staff into a giant spaghetti noodle at age 10, the parents hastily signed the magic school form. Enchantia's excuse was that they were hungry, but that was doubtful. As soon as their names were down on the paper, a flying frog-drawn carriage crash-landed in front of the cottage. The wizard stared at the bloated frogs and muttered,
Well, that's new.
The girls eagerly climbed into the covered carriage, each toting their small brown suitcases. They picked their seats and sat down together. All of a sudden, a roaring sound filled their ears. A silver handlebar slammed down onto their laps, and two snake-like buckles slithered over their knees and fastened firmly around their waists. No sooner had the safety precautions been activated, rock and roll music began booming out of the radio. Enchantia could see her parents waving goodbye out of the carriage window. As if the loud music itself blasted the carriage forward, the vehicle took off, launching forward as Enchantia and her sister screamed. The carriage flew in a choppy manner, rocking from side to side and occasionally twisting upside down. Enchantia almost dropped her suitcase out the open window. The carriage flew towards a range of hills. They raced over the tops, frequently bumping the bottom of the carriage. Mystica and Enchantia screamed louder. Enchantia could get a glimpse of Eagle Rock and housetops from above. Finally, the carriage drew towards a pine forest. It crash-landed in front of the trees. Just then, a mechanical arm punched both Enchantia and Mystica out of their seats, sending them sailing over the first pine tree. The mechanical arm, protruding out of carriage door, unclenched its punching fist, then choppily waved goodbye to the girls and pulled the door shut. The carriage took off. Meanwhile, Enchantia and Mystica stood brushing dirt off their simple dresses. The carriage sped away. Again. Enchantia stared at it and muttered,
Think we left our stuff on there? It only punched us out and not our...
Hey, she looks friendly,
said Mystica, pointing to a girl walking through a hall of pine trees. She wore a long, light gray dress that flashed with golden swirls at the bottom. She sauntered in their direction, red hair swinging viciously and brown eyes flashing dangerously.
Hi!
Began Mystica, but before she could speak, the girl pushed her out of her way and said,
Get out of my face, like, now.
Maybe not so friendly anymore.
Enchantia said, looking at her. The girl looked over her shoulder at them.
By the way, what are you wearing? That is so, like, yesterday.
The girl turned around and flounced away.
You should know. I'm Develia. Yeah, I know. I'm so awesome. And that girl over there, that's my BFF Speckle.
She said, not looking back. She went to join another girl, presumably Speckle, wearing a speckled dress and had maple brown eyes and short light brown hair. Enchantia rolled her eyes.
We're supposed to be at a school, not a forest.
Mystica pointed out.
You thought the forest was the school?
Speckle laughed.
Like, duh. What kind of magic school would be in a forest?
Enchantia stalked into the pine trees, muttering to herself. Mystica followed. Enchantia was aware of Develia staring spitefully at her back, and she wished she could do something other than turn around stupidly in a circle. But she really had no idea how to get to the school. Minutes ticked by.
They can't even find the pathway.
Develia shouted loudly to her friend. Enchantia bit her lip, and Mystica could tell she was trying not to curse at the girl. Like we knew curse words. Finally, Develia gave an exaggerated sigh and tapped a thick pine trunk with a long stick she drew out of a golden silk pouch that hung at her waist. Hold on, what? The air in front of the four girls shimmered and warped, and suddenly a long stone tunnel stretched in front of them. It was dark and a little eerie, with a few torches. It was dark and a little eerie, with a few torches casting flickering shadows on the gray walls.
Is this the right way?
Mystica asked, a little scared.
Of course it is,
Said Develia sarcastically.
I would never lie to you.
I don't know.
Enchantia replied, ignoring her.
Develia could be lying.
She then whispered to Mystica.
You never know.
Enchantia knew it was risky to trust Develia, and she'd only known her for about 15 minutes, but they literally didn't have a choice. She grasped Mystica's hand and took a hesitant step into the stone tunnel.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Mystica whispered, with a slight tremble in her voice. All at once, a latticed iron gate slammed down into the ground, blocking off the tunnel entrance. The torches shuddered and went out.
What in the world?
Enchantia said, clasping Mystica's hand tighter in the pitch black. Bye.